I have 6 months to make £50,000. What have I done? Okay, let's rewind. Have you ever felt like your life was technically working, but somehow it didn't feel like it belonged to you anymore? Like on paper, everything looks fine. You have your dream job, you have the salary, you know you should be grateful. And you are grateful. But there is this tiny voice in the back of your head going, is this really it? About 6 months ago, I quit my 6-figure job as a software engineer. I had spent years building the kind of career younger me thought would make me feel safe, successful, and sorted. And it did in a way. And then I quit, with no backup plan. Which, you know, sounds very exciting and very main character energy when you say it like that. But the honest version is, I quit the life I thought I was supposed to want. And now I'm documenting what it means to rebuild. And if you're watching this while feeling burnt out, stuck, confused, or like you've done everything that you were supposed to do and still feeling kind of weirdly unfulfilled, hi, welcome, I'm Paula, and we may be in the same group project together. So let me share with you why I decided to quit my well-paid job and what it's actually taking to rebuild a life that feels like mine. For most of my life, I was very much on the do the right thing path. You know the one. Do well in school, get a degree, get a stable job, earn good money, buy a property, invest, don't embarrass your family. Basically, be responsible and sensible. Ideally, never have an existential crisis in public. And honestly, I followed that path really well. I even moved countries at the age of 16 in pursuit of better education. I worked hard, I became a software engineer, I got a well-paid job. I built a life that on paper looked really successful. And I don't want to pretend that I'm not grateful for that, because I am. That career gave me so much. You know, it provided me with financial security, it taught me how to think, how to problem solve, how to work under pressure, or how to figure things out even when I have no idea what I'm doing. But somewhere along the way, I started realizing that the life I was building didn't really feel like mine. It felt like I had successfully completed a checklist that I never actually sat down and wrote for myself. And that's a really strange thing to admit when your life technically looks good. Because how do you say I'm unhappy when you have the thing that younger you thought would fix everything? For a long time, I thought success meant status. You know, career progression, salary, job title, having people look at your life and think, wow, she's got it together. Which is actually hilarious because now that I look back on my life, I don't think I ever had it together. I've just been very good at looking like I do. And I think I borrowed everybody else's definition of success, built a life around it, and then wondered why it didn't fit. And then came the burnout. It wasn't just needing a weekend off or a nice bath or one of those aesthetic Sunday resets where you clean your flat, you light a candle, and suddenly you feel like a new woman. Burnout made me feel like I couldn't access myself properly. I couldn't think clearly, I couldn't create, I couldn't make even the simplest decisions, such as where to park my car in the supermarket. Any type of rest went out of the window. I couldn't even do that properly because I felt guilty for resting. And that's the weird thing about being an overachiever. When your whole identity is built around being able to push through, burnout feels very confusing. Because one part of you is like, come on, get up, put your big girl pants on, make a plan, be disciplined, you know how to work hard. The other part of you is lying horizontally staring at a ceiling, unable to answer one email because your brain is in full overdrive. And then you start feeling like you're not doing enough. So you try to push harder, then you get even more burnt out, then you feel worse, then you make another color-coded plan, then you abandon the plan. I have to be honest, I have severely overestimated how long it's going to take me to unburn myself. I thought that when I quit my job, I'd suddenly become this incredibly productive, creative, self-employed woman. I thought I'd be able to move mountains with all this free time, but instead, my body was like, cute, but we will need to process several years of stress first. And that has been so humbling, so humbling. I thought the hardest part would be trying to replace my corporate salary. And it turns out that the hardest part is actually trying to unburn myself enough to try to make the money. And I don't think that people talk about that enough. The part where you leave the thing that made you miserable and somehow you still don't feel immediately free. You feel guilty, you feel scared, you feel like you should be doing more because of all this free time. But your nervous system is still living the old life and you're trying to build a new one with a brain that keeps whispering, what if this doesn't work out? So after quitting my job, I set myself a challenge to make £50,000 by the end of the year without going back to corporate, which depending on the day either feels inspiring or completely unhinged. The idea is to prove to myself that I can build an income outside of traditional job. Maybe it would be through content, UGC, brand deals, digital products, consultancy. Basically, building something that belongs to me and allows me to get my freedom and creativity back. And I think part of me needed the challenge because my motivation fully depends on how terrifying my goals are. Basically, I like to set goals that make me stare into the distance for 20 minutes, questioning all my life choices. Challenge is not just about the money. Obviously, money matters. But underneath the money goal, I think what I'm trying to do is rebuild that trust with myself, to prove that I can create options for myself, that I can build a life where success doesn't have to come at the expense of my health, creativity, or actual will to live. Because for a long time, I thought the only way to be successful is to push, achieve, overwork, ignore every warning sign of your body, and then call it ambition. And I'm trying to learn that maybe ambition can look different. Maybe it can still be big, bold, and slightly delusional, but also softer and more honest. And I know that some people might be thinking that I'm completely mental for quitting a great job in this economy. And honestly, I kind of agree. Some days I feel delusional. Some days I feel like I've made the best decision in my life. And then there are days when I think, girl, what have you done? Because I know this is risky, and I'm very aware that quitting a well-paid job without having things figured out perfectly is not exactly a low-risk investment. But also, I keep coming back to this question. If I don't do it now, then when? Life is way too short, and I don't want to wake up in 5 years still feeling unfulfilled or still waiting for the perfect moment. Still telling myself, oh, maybe next year. Hell, I don't want to wake up feeling like this in a year's time or even 6 months. Because knowing me, I could wait forever. I could keep telling myself that I'm just being sensible, being prepared, when really I'm just hiding. So nothing changes if nothing changes, right? And staying in life that looked good but made me feel disconnected was also risky. The fear of never finding out what could have happened if I gave myself a real chance started feeling greater than the fear of trying and failing. So I think I just need to do this now. Not because I know exactly what I'm doing, but because I don't want to keep abandoning myself just to maintain a life that looks good on the outside. So what's the plan? I'm trying to build income outside of traditional path. I want to explore content creation, UGC, maybe software consultancy. I want to talk about money in a way that I wish someone had spoken to me earlier. The honest stuff, building income, leaving corporate, trying to make money online, recovering from burnout, and redefining what success looks like in my 30s. Basically, I'm trying to figure out how to be a functioning adult without a payslip telling me who I am, and I want to document the whole thing. The bit where you feel hopeful and terrified at the same time, the bit where you make a plan, get overwhelmed, slightly spiral, make a coffee, and just try again. And honestly, part of the reason why I want to document this is because I want to feel less alone too. I want to be able to look back and remember that I started scared and without a plan, but I started. And I hope that if you're watching this and you feel similar, if you are burnt out, stuck, starting over, or questioning the life you thought you wanted, I hope this makes you feel less alone in your journey too. Because I'm very much the kind of person who doesn't want to tell anyone what I'm working on until I actually achieve it. Like, I want to disappear for 6 months and come back with a full transformation, clear skin, thriving business, and an announcement. That's definitely my toxic trait. But I think it's also part of the problem, because we only ever see people once they've made it. We see the launch, the income screenshot, the I can't believe this is my life post. But we don't always see the bit where they are crying and questioning their life choices at 2 a.m. And sometimes I think that sharing those moments might even be more valuable than only sharing the successful ones. I used to think I had to figure everything out by myself, but maybe the next chapter isn't meant to be done alone. Maybe the whole point is to let people in whilst it's still messy. Maybe instead of disappearing until I've made it, I can actually document the process of becoming the person who makes it. So this channel is going to be about the honest rebuild, the money side, the emotional side, the messy experiments, the things that work, things that flop, and the personal finance lessons I'm learning whilst trying to build the life I actually want. And probably a lot of conversations about ambition, burnout, fear, freedom, and what it actually means to build a life that feels like yours. I recently had a quote that says, if you don't build your dreams, someone else will hire you to build theirs. It made me realize how much of my energy, intelligence, ambition, creativity I've been pouring into a life I wasn't sure I wanted anymore. And now I want to see what happens if I put that same energy to build something of my own. I don't know if this will work. I don't know if future me will watch this and think, whoa, iconic, or whoa, babe, you were really going through it. Probably both. But what I do know is that I don't want fear to be the reason I never try. And I don't want perfectionism to be the reason I never start. So welcome to my corporate dropout era, and welcome to the beginning of the rest of my life. I'm so glad you're here. If you're also trying to figure out money, freedom, burnout, ambition, or what the hell you're doing with your life, subscribe so we can be confused together and work it out together. See you soon.